Please welcome YouTube web developer Phil Harnish.
Hello.
Hey, so this is HTML5, Flash, and the battle for faster cat videos. So just a little bit about who we are. My name is Schechter, and I am the web warrior. And so what I do is I work on YouTube's HTML5 player.
Hey, and I'm Phil Harnish, the green guy on the right. I've been doing the YouTube play button for about 3 years now. It's better than ever. We'll talk about that later.
You know, I saw that some people outside had the little Android ears. I think we should get them next time. And they had green ones for you too.
Yes.
So
Oh, is that right? They're like little bunny ears?
they did.
I see.
I'm not sure how they worked, but they look nice.
Yeah, all right.
Anyway, so HTML5. It's new, it's awesome, but does it have the power to overcome Flash? This is a big question we've been asking. So for you guys, I'm sure that most of you have done HTML5 work. There's plenty of other talks here, but just a little sort of summary of what I view it as. We have a lot of tools, and we have HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and what we did is we added a bunch of awesomeness to that. And that's how we got HTML5. And so it's got a whole new set of features. The ones that at YouTube that we're using specifically are multimedia, graphics, and storage. Now, YouTube's a video website, so really the most important one is the multimedia. This would be like the video tag, which is, that's what we use. That's our bread and butter right there.
I think it's the only reason why we can pretend to be HTML5.
Right.
The rest of the stuff you guys do.
So a translation, for anybody who might be in sales, might not know the technical aspects, usually we just say that this is about unicorns and rainbows. But I don't know, what would that be here? Maybe robots playing ping pong?
Right, yeah.
But they've already done that, so maybe that's not
even more
impressive
amazing
anymore.
than that?
I don't know. You guys do some crazy things out here. But yeah, so then Flash. Flash has been around for a long time. I mean, we've been rocking the Flash player for years now.
Yeah.
And you see it everywhere.
Definitely.
And so, we're sort of looking at, can HTML5 overcome it, this experienced player in the game? So why do we even have this HTML5 player? And so we started to look at a lot of different things. Looked at the feature set, accessibility, a word that I made up called deviceability, which, we'll get to all this later.
You might have to slow down. That's a pretty weird word.
That is a weird word. Somebody will have to tell me afterwards how that translates. But I'll let Phil take it over from now.
All right, so I'm going to speak a little bit to Flash's strengths and kind of spell out what sort of work is ahead for Greg when he wants to compete. Well, maybe the most difficult thing that comes to mind is content protection. It's a really difficult subject to talk about in an open community. How do you make rentals? How do you make Miley Cyrus music videos? It's something that partners really want on the YouTube platform we have to provide. And we do that with RTMP, which is a proprietary Flash protocol. Another really important feature for YouTube users is being able to record videos on our website. You can easily upload a video, certainly, but if you have a webcam on your laptop, Flash has an API for recording video right there. Full screen video seems like a pretty obvious missing feature in HTML5, and I assure you they're working on it, but it's been in Flash for so long now, I can't imagine HTML5, what reason they have for being so slow. Greg, maybe you could elaborate a little?
Sure. So one of the great things about HTML5 is it is developing. So full screen is actually coming to the browsers today, and you can even play around with it in Chrome already. And so the code's going to look a little bit like this. You basically can request full screen here, and you can listen to it, and just when it changes, you can interact with it. Really, really simple. Now, there's a lot more complexity that needs to go on, and this discussion's happening now. And I've been very active in the discussions with engineers at both Chrome and Firefox, Mozilla, because they're the ones who are most active in the standards and have code checked in to their nightlies that we can actually play with and interact with.
You mentioned the other browsers, but this says just WebKit.
It does. It's just it's an evolving standard. So for Mozilla, it would just be MOZ in front of it instead of WebKit. But I'm really excited for this. And actually, let me actually show you it working now. I got one of my favorite videos up here.
So this is the HTML5 player, huh?
This is the HTML5 player. And I don't know if you guys have seen this video, but it's really catchy. And everybody wants, their Easter bunnies in full screen and with, high quality. So I can click full screen and I get a full screen experience, which is great. Before,
Where'd the controls go?
they'll come back sometime. I don't know. It's a bug.
Nice.
But this is brand new. We didn't have this a month ago. It's really fast iterations. The browsers are getting it out right now, and I'm really excited to see what they'll do.
All right.
Back to you, Phil.
Thanks. And the next bullet I have is about consistent format support. And I'm going to even include the next bullet after that. What Flash really provides is sort of a consistency that you don't find yet in the browsing web application world yet. Any application that I write in ActionScript will behave the same way on a mobile device as well as it does on desktop, Linux, Mac, Windows. And so this sort of cross-platform support it carries over into the codecs that we can use to play video. Whereas HTML5 is still working on kind of establishing a common video file format to use for video playback, and it puts it at a disadvantage for the time being. But enough about, I guess, being a hater and giving them a lot of trouble. How about the expectations? What sort of bright future is ahead? What actually gets me excited about HTML5? I kind of want to contradict what I just concluded with on the other slide. I do believe that HTML5 really could become a consistent cross-platform utopia, where the codecs and the browsers and and ultimately our player can behave the same way on every device. And we went over, that was covered in the keynote, that mobile, for example, is going to be one of the real big growth areas. Because it's integrated into the browser, you get benefits like lower latency. The plugin does not even need to doesn't need to launch, doesn't need to initialize a new VEM. It's integrated into the browser now. You get better performance as a result, which means fewer dropped frames, hardware acceleration, that sort of thing. And then accessibility is kind of hard to imagine. So rather than try and describe, I think I'll illustrate. If I can work this here, Alt-Tab, boom, mouse, go. So here we have the Flash player. You can barely tell, but you'll notice that as I tab through the page, I skip right past. I think it's probably an exaggeration to say you notice that my active element is way down here underneath the player. Yes, he's
Right here.
Yeah, and then I jump all the way back up to the search area, skipping the player entirely. So for a blind user or anybody with I don't know, even
Who can't use a mouse?
Even the most basic disability, really, will run into trouble trying to use the Flash plugin because it's not so tightly integrated. Contrast that with the HTML5 player, where as soon as I tab out of the search box, which I guess we believe is the most important, you're into the player. So you can pause, play, mute, and interact with the player like this. That might seem a little bit boring, but it's just impossible to do in Flash because it's a completely different environment. The sort of thing that HTML5, I guess, solves. Can you flip me over back to the presentation?
Sure. It's time for captions talk.
So what do the captions mean to us? This is an XKCD comic. It says, "Hi, I'm from the internet. What are you doing?" "I'm gluing captions to your cats." This is definitely true for our videos, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. And we made sure to talk to him and make sure that those captions are in multi-language as well.
Yeah.
We want it to be accessible for everyone.
Yeah, about that. I saw you show me some captions earlier today. It would seem that Flash failed once again.
Oh yeah, this was really exciting.
I'm pretty surprised to see this.
So you can see in the HTML5 player those captions. Probably all of you can read that. I can't. But the interesting thing is in the Flash player, when the captions come up, they actually don't render any readable characters other than
So in my defense, this is because he's using Linux, and it's a complicated operating system that nobody understands.
I don't have that font installed, but...
But yeah, I'm really surprised. So Flash has let me down on this one.
Win for HTML5, I say.
Yeah. Thanks. And actually, this is it. Do you guys have your 3D glasses? You're going to need them. And if you don't, we'll have extras in our office hours.
We have the special YouTube ones.
Ours say YouTube. And they're also a little sturdier. Hey.
So, make sure that all your cats have them on too.
Dude, your picture, it's backwards.
Isn't that how 3D works? Anyway, we've got 3D content's really, really interesting, and you see phones, have 3D on them now, and so this is a concern for us at YouTube, and as we're developing richer and richer features. So let me just show you a 3D video now. And I can even make it go full screen. Is it working?
I can't tell.
That looks 3D.
Yeah.
So this is great that we have 3D. This is actually with the Flash player, but HTML5 can do 3D. It's a little bit different. But yeah, just a little bit of sample that give you an idea of what we got going on. I feel like I should highlight the main character in this film. It's this little dinosaur, and
This is a good one.
He'll hatch out eventually.
Yeah.
Did we get him? Nope. Anyway, it's a little T-Rex sort of thing. It's really nice.
That's really pretty good on the big screen.
Yeah. If you get a chance, definitely watch the full thing. So you can take your glasses off now. So what, if you look here, there's a lot of different ways that we can do 3D in Flash. And we have this menu at YouTube, and we have basically
all the glasses.
A lot of different ways
Yeah.
To do Flash in 3D, and then we have one for HTML5. And so why can we do all these different things in Flash? Well, Flash is kind of built for this. It's built for graphics. It's easy to manipulate the videos. With HTML5, we have to require other technologies, WebGL or Canvas. Certainly, it's possible, but it's just not as easy as easy to use, easy to write.
Well, more to the point, it's not as fast.
It's not as fast, not as performant, too.
And you need to be able to do 24 frames per second in order to keep up with the video.
Certainly. With HTML5, what we're hoping is, that we'll have a standard, and it'll be really easy to integrate into the browsers and onto devices. And at the moment, if you have specific NVIDIA drivers and are using Firefox, you actually can get HTML5 3D with active shutter glasses, and it's a really, really good experience.
Yeah, better than Flash, in fact.
Yeah, it's better than Flash.
Yeah, integrated into the hardware.
So I'm pretty excited for what's going to happen in the 3D space. So next I want to talk about something called deviceability. And I mentioned this before as a word that I made up. And basically what it means is, where does Flash live? Where does HTML5 live? Where can we actually deliver these players?
that Flash cannot reach.
Yeah. So when we look at it, we look at all the different people who are coming to YouTube, and what's the browser distribution, and it's actually not looking all that bad. About 60% of all the people who come to YouTube have a browser that can support HTML5.
Specifically video, and yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Specifically the video tag and either H.264 WebM, the encodings we mentioned earlier. Chrome is a big chunk of this, and mobile is actually really small, but this is growing. And every time I look at this gets pretty big. This gets bigger and bigger, but we still have a lot of people on desktop, so we gotta account for them.
Certainly.
So the environment sort of looks something like this. Flash works in all sorts of places. And HTML5 works in a lot of the same places, and like I said, it's growing more and more. And then we have this tiny little sliver here of places where only HTML5 works. And this is mostly iPhones and iPods. There's a few other things that are in there. Some of the consoles only support HTML5 without Flash. So, but it is a really tiny sliver of the different places that these devices, or that these platforms will work on. But the interesting thing is when we look at our API developers, where they want to use our APIs, what they want to, when they're building applications, where do they want it to live? Where's the growth? It sort of changes. And we have, everybody wants to build something that's only going to work on an HTML5 device. And a lot of this is, again, iPhone and iPod, and certainly Android doesn't always come installed with Flash on it. So that's a huge portion of this, too. So, when we realized this and we saw that all these people want to build these HTML5 applications, well, the question wasn't really why HTML5 anymore. It was really about when HTML5.
Certainly.
And so the first thing we wanted to do, our primary goal, was to recover the playbacks we would have lost without Flash. That was the first thing to get done. And so our solution to this, specifically with embeds, making it really easy, was an iframe embed. And so it's this really small, pretty simple piece of code that anybody can come to our site, copy, and put onto their own website so that the player can live there. And all you got to do is include the video ID. And it's as simple as that.
And it works.
It just works. And so what was great about this is we were able to deliver HTML5 or Flash based on the device that the embed was on and based off the user's preferences. And so this allows for this great, mobile reach, and it offers this JustWorks experience. If you don't have Flash installed, it'll give you HTML5. If you don't have HTML5, it'll give you Flash. It's just going to work. And so this is really exciting because now, as a developer, you can just take our YouTube video and it's just going to work anywhere. You don't have to worry about these differences. We've taken care of that for you. So if you want to try out HTML5, and you want to, maybe you're like, well, why am I getting the Flash player? Why am I getting HTML5 player? This is sort of a little bit of the business logic here. So the first thing you'll want to do is opt in to getting HTML5. And you can come to youtube.com/HTML5. And it's just a little link at the bottom, and you can join the trial. Certainly we're experimenting, we're giving this to more people, so you might even be getting HTML5 automatically and not even realize it.
Hopefully you didn't realize, yeah.
That's the goal, right? So what happens? First we check, all right, does your browser support HTML5? And the code for that's pretty simple. We just see, all right, can we make a video tag element? Great. Now, does it support the two formats that we have, that we might deliver? And the interesting thing is most of our embeds don't actually get clicked on. So we don't have all the information we need right away to know, do we have a WebM format? Do we have an H.264 format?
Right.
And the different browsers support different things. So for example, Firefox only has WebM. And so
some of our videos really.
Some of our videos don't.
Yeah.
So first we just say, all right, support H.264, support WebM. Sweet.
I wanted to, isn't it true that this is only maybe possible? I thought that these APIs only return maybe.
That's true. The APIs will do their best guess to what they think they'll be able to play.
Right. Which strikes me as a little bit strange.
The API is really weird. It returns probably, maybe, and an empty string if it doesn't think it can do it. But So after that, we wait for the user to click on the embed, and then we go and we sort of check some things. All right, are there any business reasons why we can't play this video? Maybe the video is private, but if we're all good, then we'll look and we'll see, do we have a format? Do we have a format that we can support? Awesome, great, we're winning, and we got our HTML5 player. If at any point it fails, we'll try to go to the Flash player, or maybe we'll just fail. In the case that the video is private, we'll have to just fail out and show a sorry message. So then, after we have these players and built and ready and working, well, what do we need to do? We've got to see which one performs better. And this is truly a battle, which is why this cat's wearing a helmet. Maybe next time we should wear helmets and like headbutt or something. I don't know.
No, it won't.
You're right. With the antenna, it'll get in the way.
I had too many hats.
Unless we put the antennas on the helmets.
I don't even know.
So the first thing we look at when we're measuring performance is there's this thing called player start. And to us, this means the very first time that you can tell that there's a player on the page. So you'll just start to see the loading spinner, or maybe you'll actually get the thumbnail if you're on an embed.
So what you're measuring is like the time from the page appearing to the time that the player appears.
Right. And this is great. HTML5 is a lot faster, half a second. This is great. And this is actually even up from almost a year ago when it was only 200 milliseconds. So I'm really excited, and I hope that this number will even drop more so I can rub it in Phil's face. And then the next thing, So
an illustration.
this is sort of like an illustration. I took, this was a controlled environment, and I tried to get a snapshot of how our embeds look from when you load the page to when you actually see the thumbnail. And these times are a little bit exaggerated. And from our collected data, it doesn't show that, it's not really 5 seconds.
It's not that bad, yeah.
But the difference, the comparison is definitely accurate.
Yeah.
So the next thing that we like to look at is something called get video. And this is right when we're sending the request to actually get the stream.
That's because a lot happens, I guess, between the player appearing and the request for the video?
So an example of what might happen in between is knowing what format, what sort of size, what quality you want
it's really complicated, isn't it?
There's a lot of stuff that goes on, and that's just one example. So we saw a lot of really interesting data with this. So just looking at HTML5, doing a quick browser comparison, we saw that Opera is kind of awesome, which was really unexpected, because they always do a great job, but you don't hear about them very much.
They're very humble.
Yeah, and they were about 200 milliseconds ahead of the pack.
Which is a lot, by the way.
Yeah, but I mean, they're all really, really close. And then when we looked at Flash, it was actually IE9 and Opera that were the leaders. And they were about 300 milliseconds faster than the rest. And then when we were comparing HTML5 with Flash, the same browser, we saw that HTML5 is almost always faster, about 300 to 400 milliseconds faster, except for IE, where Flash is slightly faster than HTML5 with IE.
It is kind of strange. I would not have guessed. IE is surprising, yeah.
IE is able to do some special things with their plugin infrastructure that really boosts the performance of Flash, which is part of the reason why, on the next slide, this gap is so big. So the next thing we look at is video start time, and this is the time until the video is actually started to play.
Right, and this may be the most important number
Absolutely.
Out of
I mean, because who cares if we fetch the cat video faster if it doesn't start playing?
Right. So this is the number that matters.
And this is where the numbers flop. HTML5 is a lot slower, 2.5 seconds. That's really, really big. And it's really sad. And we're not actually completely sure why. I've been working a lot with the guys on the Chrome team, and also a little bit with the guys at Mozilla to try to figure out why it's so slow, how we can speed this up. And in the past couple of weeks, and like even today, this number is changing drastically. And in 2 weeks, if I were to give this talk again, my hope is that this number will actually be closer to the Flash number.
Right.
If not better.
So if we've learned anything, I suppose it's that every platform is different. The reason for the slowness is different for every platform. And I think that Flash maybe has the advantage only because, well, not only, but because it's had so many more years.
It has. Certainly, we've been struggling just to make sure that we're even measuring the right thing. To know when the video starts playing is not as trivial as one might think, because the browsers do interact a little bit different.
Yeah. Suffice to say, it's not very mature yet. Yeah.
But I'm betting that this will beat Phil eventually.
It seems inevitable.
I got money on it. It's, you know, I think the pool ends at the end of the month, so hopefully I'll win.
I don't know.
And so one interesting thing is Firefox is actually they're the closest to catching Flash counterpart.
Right. This graph is for all browsers. Is that right?
This is all, yes, all HTML5 views and all Flash views. And just looking at Firefox, they're only about HTML5 is about a second slower than Flash. And I actually updated this number yesterday from a second and a half.
So they're getting better.
They're getting better, and all the browsers are getting better. So back to you, Phil.
Yeah. I mentioned briefly that Flash is more mature, has had a chance to improve for many years. So let's talk about why, what Flash is doing right and what HTML5 will use wherever possible. Well, the first thing that we've come to do at YouTube is make assumptions. If you read the best practices for doing anything with Flash, you'll hear advice that is contrary to this. We realized that most users use the latest version of Flash, and that very early on, we said 99% of all of our visitors have Flash. So we can assume then that the latest and greatest version of our player should work. And so we'll put that onto the page, straight into the HTML. And in the end, this saves us 250 milliseconds. So that was a really good win. And then, of course, if it doesn't work, we'll find out right away on the order of 10, 20 milliseconds. I can't imagine it being long. And then we'll put HTML5 in.
Yeah.
All right. The second trick that we have is preloading the video connection. So actually requiring a video to play in the player would require a lot of things that you take for granted. Specifically, the DNS, resolving DNS. And if you're familiar with HTTP headers, there's a keep alive header, which is pretty common. So when we do this trick here and set a URL, we trick the browser into requesting a URL as though it were an image that points to the same place that the video file is going to come from. This will pre-warm the connection and save us another 200 milliseconds. And for reference, that's a total of what? Almost 500 milliseconds. And that's how much Firefox was able to shave off in the last 3 weeks of effort.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, 2 little tricks like this save you quite a bit of time overall. And then embeds, we can do even more clever shortcuts. Obviously, it's really important caching the requests. The embeds appear all over the internet billions of times a day, and people will only watch some of them. So we focus actually a lot on the performance of just the embed appearing. And initially, what we did for our trick, Greg, you have to show me.
Oh, did you turn it off?
How do you do the laser?
Oh, it's the green button.
There's a green button.
This one, right there.
Brilliant. All right. So initially, we would redirect to this file right here, which would almost never be cached. But it was small. And then the player would be an argument to this URL. So we would request this file. So 3 steps. This one is free, this one is cheap, and this one is cached. Then we came up with an even crazier idea. What if instead of redirecting, what if we returned a binary file on demand? What I mean is this file is generated by the server. So the response is a customized Flash file that has the media information, the URLs and stuff. So this file never gets cached still. but we skip the second step. All of these parameters are inside of this Flash file, and then this file gets cached as before. Turns out we didn't need any of that fancy trickery, though. Once we went about making HTML5 work, the iframe embed was inevitable. We needed a way to have HTML5 or Flash, and so the work that was left was getting the rest of the internet on board for using iframes. And that actually was kind of difficult. Lots of sites would prefer that you didn't put an iframe into the page. Sites like, I don't know, LiveJournal, eBay. And then once that iframe embed returned, it was just HTML. We did the same trick we talked about before. You put the Flash player right into the page, super simple, and this will get cached. This performs pretty well, and we're really kind of happy with this. The second trick that we're looking into, it's really kind of related to a lesson we learned from HTML5. If we can delay loading the plugin, then there are even more savings. If we can delay loading the Flash player, we can really kind of cut a lot of cost. And like I said, few will even click play. By comparison, the billions of impressions that we get per day, the billions of times it appears. And so how does that work? If you look at these two images, the one on the left is HTML5, the one on the right is Flash. The reason why
it was the other way around.
In reality, I just copied the same image, but I promise they look the same. The control bar, because we have no control bar, because it's just text, because it's just an image, and they're indistinguishable. And then when the user clicks this button here, it turns into the Flash player. Again, saving a lot of bytes. We have some demos of the iframe player.
So yeah, that's a lot of talk. I want to show you the two players side by side, and you can kind of get an example of what the performance is like between the two. There's one. So here we have the two players, and I'm missing the bottom.
Controls. I should have helped you with that.
This is actually going to be better. There we go. So the top player is the Flash player, and the bottom one is the HTML5 player. And when I refresh the page, we can see the HTML5 player loads a lot faster than the Flash player.
Is that true?
Yes, win for me, of course. Here, watch up there. See, look at that.
Yeah, all right. I guess I do believe you because you've got a bug. There's some blank space here where the author should be.
I didn't do it. So now, actually looking at, like we said, now there's the important time is actually how long it takes to play the video.
So you got a button.
So I got a button here, and it should do them both. And yes,
I blame Linux.
Hi, my name's Jeff.
So certainly we've given this talk a few times, and I feel like I'm winning more often now than I used to. And if I hit this page a lot and I sort of prime the caches, I definitely have a pretty big advantage.
Right, caching is such an important part of low latency performance and stuff. So I think the fact that he ran this test back in the other room is why it works well enough.
Let's try again. I got a different video. I didn't play this one.
I don't believe you.
Oh,
okay, all right.
And now, right, there you go. That time I lost.
So okay. Yeah, caching.
But this was a lovely video. This was we did this for April Fools. But yeah, so the interesting thing, as you can see, I'm actually I have these buttons and I'm using this API to communicate with the player. So that's actually another really interesting topic. Is how do you make player APIs for these two things? So if you want to see our API, this is a link to get there. You can certainly just search on Google, and it's easy enough to find. Yeah. So one of the first things, and the most interesting thing that we had to deal with, is because we have this new iframe embed, we have to figure out a way to communicate with it.
It's a famous problem, iframes, and
yeah,
it's complicated.
The Flash player just worked easy. Flash had something built in for us so that we could just create bindings on the DOM object itself, but the iframe doesn't give this to us. So what were we to do? So the first thing that we tried was we wanted to just pull the URL fragment.
That's a classic solution.
So we stick a little message at the end, and we can just listen to we can just keep seeing when it changed. And this kind of sucked. The problem was the messages are very one-dimensional. Because you're polling, that's going to eat up your CPU, and it's not going to be instant. And also, both directions of communication have to use that same fragment. So when the player talks to the container, to the page that it's on, and that page talks to the player, it has to use the same fragment. And this was really complicated. How do we make sure that we're not overwriting messages and make sure that when you're writing, you're not, you weren't supposed to be reading.
Yeah.
And it was ugly.
Yeah.
So instead, we started to use post message. And this is a new API. So it's not available in every browser, but it's available in the majority of them. The ones that we're missing here are mainly IE6 and IE7. And for that, HTML5 is not going to work anyway. But this API is very simple. You have a message and a target origin, and you can just send it, and it'll work. So what did this allow us to do? Well, first, we were able to just encode our messages in JSON. And this was very native for encoding and decoding. It was great. We didn't have to poll anymore. We could use native event listeners, which fit how the rest of our code looked. And it made our code a lot cleaner.
Yep.
And now communication is sandboxed per window. So we didn't have to worry about overriding things. Now, it does get a little tricky because if you have multiple players on the page, all those players will send messages to the same parent page.
Yes.
And so we had to do a little bit of work to figure out how this would work. But it was really easy. Yeah, to figure out where the messages were coming from. And so each player just has an ID. And then when we see a message with that ID, we know it's coming from that player, and we're good to go. One of the struggles with this method, though, is the calls are asynchronous. And
Almost
this
useless.
Well, it makes it really tough. So when you want to get the current time of a player, most of the time you want that to happen right away.
You want it.
You want it right then and there. So what we did to solve this is we just we continuously send the time and a few other things, and then anytime they change, and then we'll store the state in the parent. So that way, when you call get current time, you'll get it right away.
Super useful. And
it's been working out great. It will be a little bit delayed, but hopefully not much. And we haven't heard any complaints from our API developers about it being.
In fact, I think they've been pretty happy that it was synchronous, that you would get.
Oh yeah, these things were, it was working great for them. They're like, yeah, this is perfect. This is working exactly how I want it to.
Definitely advice for anyone who's writing an API through an iframe. This technique has been better than I think our other options.
Oh yeah, we've been playing around with the API and trying to add more to it to make it richer too. Now that we
certainly
have this abstraction between Flash and HTML5,
they work the same way. Yeah.
Right. Well, any disadvantages that we had because we were working with Flash, we don't have to worry about now because there's a layer of abstraction. So we've been improving our API with that. Yeah. So to conclude, Flash is still our preferred browser. Still our preferred player.
Yeah.
It's got more critical features. It's got a deeper reach. More of our users have it.
I think the full screen might be like the killer feature.
Yeah.
You're just gonna have to have full screen before we can use it more.
It's coming though. It's coming. I'm excited. Firefox promised by I think January is when they're expected for it to be out.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, so will I. It'll be awesome. It's checked in. I've seen that. And HTML5, it's awesome. It's great. It's exciting. And it's improving every day. I mean, we've even mentioned in our talk a few different things that have just changed, like today and yesterday.
Whereas with Flash, I feel like it doesn't change that much anymore. Yeah.
And so, HTML5 is a much greater mobile reach, which is fantastic because I know I want to watch my cat videos wherever I go. And people want it. People really do want HTML5 in more and more places. And I think, how crowded the HTML5 talks have been, I think is, kind of proves that people want that.
Definitely. It's going to be cool.
So that's sort of it. And we'll be taking questions outside at office hours.
And giving away the glasses if you
we've
don't
got
have any yet.
I know that you guys all have, you know, the awesome Chrome 3D glasses.
These are
but
awesome-er.
These are definitely awesomer. So thank you.